All right. Okay, guys, my name is Clayton Hicks. I'm the CEO and founder of H7. And today, on this training for 7 pillars, we're going to go over the perfect networking appointment. We did this about 4 weeks ago. And so we're just rounding it back in. And in the last one, we really kind of concentrated in the connecting area, making sure that you could connect and, of course, serve and ask. But today, I'd like to just kind of venture in a little bit more to the serving and then the asking and make sure that we're all kind of moving in the same direction because the goal here with H7 is that you build win-win relationships, right? Um, as you might imagine, that is not always the case for everybody who's networking. Maybe one of them is in a win, or you might be in a win-lose relationship, which means like the people you're around, you're serving, and everything's good, and you look around, you're like, oh, nobody's helping me. I'm not getting any help, and and then so you're in a win-lose relationship, and sometimes you can fix that by simply getting better at asking, or being more efficient with asking, or knowing where to put the ask, and or simply could be that you're just not asking at all, and that happens. And so none of us have to feel bad about it, of course. And sometimes we get kind of caught up in it. And so let's get started if that's okay. Um, all right. So give me 1 second. Okay. All right. So these days have kind of somewhat changed, and we're living in more of a virtual world, and so because of that, you might need to do 30-minute one-to-ones instead of an hour, unless you're calling Jim Crone. Going to be on there for an hour. He is such a lovable guy and so helpful that he will not let you off the phone, which is awesome about him. So, so just a couple little things to remember there. If it's 30 minutes, that's okay these days. Used to be that wasn't exactly what kind of happened. I can tell you from my own experience that I used to do 1 hour one-to-ones before COVID. And so my story with doing one-to-ones, just so we're clear on the same page, I still do one-to-ones today. They tend to be 15 or 30 minutes long now, but I've done thousands of them these days, since I've started. So some of you may know this, some of you may not. But between August of 2014 and August of 2018, I did 3,000 1-hour one-to-ones. And so what was born of that was connect, serve, and ask. And let me tell you, a lot more. So that experience, man, I really don't want to do that again exactly. So it was a lot. I probably do 5 or 6 one-to-ones a week now versus 15 to 18 and 19, way back, and driving and all these things. And it was a wonderful experience, learning about people, learning how all the different behaviors, and, why does this person just from my own experience, why does this person join when I meet with them? Why does this person need more time? What I didn't even ask them to join. Why are they why are they like, hey, I want to join, or hey, I'm not sure what I'm going to get. I mean, all these things that I'm learning, and I'm still learning today. So every day is a learning experience. And as you kind of grow in your reputation, in your influence, your one-to-ones shift. Then, when I started the one-to-ones, nobody knew who I was, and which is great. Um, Now people kind of know me a little bit more, and I love serving. So I've come up with this thing where people pay for like the infrastructure of H7, but man, I will do referrals and introductions all day for free. I mean, I love it. And when you get to that point where you're just doling out introductions and stuff, man, it's just a very validating moment. Um, so anyway, So before we kick off and get started, does anybody have any questions about a one-to-one at all before we get started? Okay. All right, let's get started. So the perfect networking appointment is built upon three fundamental sections of the one-to-one. They just so happen to be the tenet of H7 network. So connect, serve, and ask. So connect, serve, and ask is based on the perfect networking appointment. Now, the perfect networking appointment, there's nothing perfect about it except the fundamentals of it, because we're people and we go through different things and we're asking different questions and we're listening, and there's different personality styles. There's people that are quiet. There's the introvert, the outgoing extrovert, the ingoing or the quiet introvert, the outgoing introvert, the quiet extrovert. I mean, there's just so many different personalities. There's the driven person that's like, hey, we're here to, how can I help you? And they don't even know your name, so there's all these different experiences that happen. But the fundamentals, these three fundamentals, are designed just to kind of give you a place to kind of set on when doing and performing your one-to-ones and building win-win relationships. So let's get started with connect. I'm going to use the chat box as a place to, let me say it this way, as a place to kind of connect with you guys and give you some, whoops, there we go. So first up, connect with the other person. Now, this training is built on 30-minute meetings. It flexes out to 1 hour. It does flex out to 1 hour. It also flexes down to 15 minutes. Now, if some of you know me, if anybody knows me, I literally use connect, serve, and ask in almost everything that I do. Whether I'm with networking, our H7 meeting is designed by connect, serve, and ask. If you look at it, if you take a step back, you're like, okay, we're connecting over introductions, we're serving each other into small groups, and we're asking for our requests. It's beautiful. So, and so it's very exciting. So to connect with each other. So I'm going to give you five questions here, or 5 topics that you can use. Okay. So think like you're sitting with somebody who's the opposite of you. Maybe they're quiet and you're not. Okay. So these 5 topics or statements get people to chat, right? Tell me about yourself. Okay. Tell me your story. Okay. Well, think of it like that. They're just talking points. Okay. Now, the part of this connect that I wanted to kind of talk about was kind of how to leverage connect to really get to like someone and know someone. Okay. Because inside of connect, serve, and ask is like, know, and trust. Okay. So like and know is in connect. It's in the connecting portion, right? You guys are connecting over, family, or, your businesses, or, hey, that's where I'm from, or, hey, I went to school there, or whatever. All these things that just kind of connect us, helps us to like and know the other person. Okay. So here's some little techniques that I did not really go through the last time. Actually, before I do that, does anybody have any questions about these topics? Okay. All right. So here we go with this connect. Okay. So when you are connecting with someone else, you want to be the person that starts the conversation. Okay. Be typing this in. Okay. Okay, start the conversation. Why would that be a technique? Anybody tell me why that'd be a technique?
Gets people talking.
Yep. Yep. You're also, yep, that is correct. You're also leading the conversation. Okay. It kind of minimizes, I mean, this is just one thing that does this, but you minimize the salesy person across from you if you happen to be in a one-to-one like that, right? Just kind of, you're starting the conversation, you're setting the tone. Hey, tell me about yourself. Susan, tell me about yourself, right? And then what do? You start telling me about yourself. So if you had some plan, hey, Trina, if you had some plan to sell me something, now all of a sudden you're back a little. You're like, oh, okay. So you're kind of managing the conversation. Okay. Here's the next one. Listen more, talk less. Okay. All right. So listen more. So don't be afraid to connect with somebody and you talk less than the other person. Have you ever been in that type of one-to-one? No, where you get to talk the less? Okay. All right. All right. So listen more and talk less. So the third part to this is while you're talking less, so you're listening more. So when you do talk, you talk in a relatable way. Okay, relatable way. All right, what do you think I mean by that? What do you think I mean by that?
I mean, you obviously kind of like either take mental notes or maybe jot some stuff down, but like, you know, if they're like, well, take me for example, always talking about my dogs. So what do people do? They bring up their pets too, and it starts, I don't know, it's really relatable, great conversation. You could tell they were actually listening.
Mm-hmm. What
another, another thing is don't use industry buzzwords.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's just so many people that when you ask them to tell them about what they do, they just overwhelm you. Don't do that.
So these last two specific techniques that we're talking about really is designed to help you navigate the one who's talking too much. Okay. No offense to anybody on this call. I haven't experienced that with anybody on this call. I'm just saying, but you could. Okay. You could. And so when you're communicating relatably, it's like the dog. Okay. When you hear them say, so, okay, so let's say you're meeting with somebody who's a salesman and you own your own business. Okay. Now, typically, a salesman does not come out and say, oh my gosh, tell me how you started your business. Because they're in sales. Like they've been in sales for 10 years. They don't know any different. So when you communicate with them, communicate from the narrative of sales or the narrative. So think narrative. My narrative with the person across from me, if I'm going to connect with them, needs to be about things they're talking about. So if they never ask you how you started your business, don't just slam them with the information like, oh, let me tell you, I started my business, blah, blah, blah. And you just, and you just hammer them. Be relatable. Oh, so how are your sales this year? You're just kind of navigating the waters of the conversation. And they're like, oh my gosh, sales are great. Oh, me too. So because you said me too, now that's an entrance point into the conversation. This is definitely so that you can relate to whom and what you're talking to. Think okay, so in your own lives, you have thousands of stories of your life. Okay, there's all these experiences in your life. There's that, you know, when you were in high school and elementary, and when you were in college, and when you were 20, and when you were 28, and all these experiences. When you communicate with the person across from you, be relatable. So if you're sitting with a bank manager that you happen to be doing a one-to-one with, talk about your management of your team if you own your own business. You know, don't spew a bunch of information just to be doing it. Relate to them. Relate to them. Okay. Any questions or comments about that? None? Okay. I love these techniques. They're the ones that are not so easily attained. All right. All right. So also when you're connecting, if you have 30 minutes with them, remember that you will want to spend about 12 to 15 minutes with them connecting on a 30-minute call. Now, again, the fundamentals of this is based on 30 minutes. So obviously it flexes up, okay, or flexes down or whatever. All right. Here we go. All right. Next is serve. Okay. Next is serve. When you serve, you want to spend about 7 to 10 minutes serving them. So if you look at this, if you look at serve, oftentimes when people try to help each other, it's at the end of the meeting, right? You've been connecting, you've been connecting, you've been connecting, you've been connecting, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're almost out of time. How can I help you? Oh my gosh, I got to go. How can I help you? How often does that happen to you? Yeah. It's like the last thing. I don't know why that is. But serving also allows you to get to know them, the other person. So oftentimes that serving piece either gets pushed to the end or people just stay in they just stay in this connecting mode. So think like, your friend, but there's nothing else there's no like fruit from it. It's kind of like why you may not tell your family what you do for a living, like me for the holidays. We don't talk about me. Why would we talk about me? I'm the only entrepreneur in the family. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about them. So anyway, okay, to be transparent, I would ask everybody to be transparent. So how many of you tend to put your how can I help yous at the end of your one-to-one? Please be transparent, please.
A lot of times I'll do it in the middle when they're talking and they're through talking. I'll turn it around and say, well, how can I help you before I even get started on my story?
That happens too. So when you go in and you say, okay, Hannah, how can I help you? Actually, think about your one-to-one with me. Did I do how can I help you at the end? For those of you who are on the call that have done a one-to-one with me in the call, did I do it at the end? No, I learned a little bit about you. And I was like, oh, so who'd you like to meet? How can I help you? Who would you like to meet? And that is so think of it like, so the serving part is so important for these reasons. Okay. Number one, it changes the trajectory of the conversation. Okay. Changes your trajectory of the conversation. Number two is it gives you the opportunity to now start to earn trust with the other person. Okay, so when you throw in how can I help you, smoothly, of course. Smoothly, of course. With that change in trajectory, now you're headed a different direction that will allow you to earn trust. Okay. So let me give you one technique that may just kind of help you change the conversation a little bit. Not everybody likes to hear this. Okay. But if you're in a one-to-one over Zoom, you can always say, hey, can you hold on just a second and turn off your screen? Okay. It kind of stops the conversation, right? It changes the conversation. Used to, I would tell the story of I would look at my watch. And I promise you I did. So the story was I would look at my watch. And then the person would say, oh, and trust me, I got a lot of flack for it. They would say, so, do you have to leave? No. How can I help you? I sure did often. Now, I don't recommend you do that unless you're feeling pretty confident in yourself. I got a lot of flack. People would say, oh, that's so rude. Was it? Did you get helped? Not rude anymore. Right? So it's like, so anyway, these minor little distractions is what I would call it in order to change the conversation to say, how can I help you? Okay, so I'm going to add this in. So create a minor distraction. Okay. Now, so create a minor distraction. Think of like, what would you say? Like, what would you do? I guess you could turn off your screen, your video. You could say, excuse me. What are some other things you can do?
You could also say, well, when's your next one-on-one? Or, well, I've got another one-on-one, coming up, or what are you up to tonight? What else you've got on your schedule today? And then,
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's much better than looking at your watch. Definitely. I would even like not look at my watch. I'd turn on my phone. You know, when you like turn on your phone to see what time it is. I did so many one-to-ones. I knew what time it was. I was just trying to create a distraction. So anyway, okay. So all right. So let's dig in a little bit more to the serving and how you earn trust. Okay, because know and trust is in serve. So I'm going to ask you, how can I help you? And then I'm going to ask you, who would you like to meet? Okay. I put them in the chat box here. Who's your target market? Some other various questions. But you learn so much about a person when you ask them, who would they like to meet? What, in your opinion, if you were to ask, who would you like to meet? What in your opinion, would you learn about the person by asking that? Who would you like to meet? Susan, you shook your head. What's one thing that you might learn about the other person?
It would help where their mind frame is. What are their challenges? Who are they trying to connect with?
Mhm.
That maybe I know, or the other part is, again, what is their marketing strategy? What is their sales strategy?
That's right. Yep. Anything else? Anything else?
Hopefully they've chosen a target market, or maybe you can help them narrow it down in that conversation.
You're right. So what does that tell you about them, Sandra? If you asked me, who would you like to meet? And I couldn't describe that to you very well, what would that tell you about that person?
That they may be struggling with sales, struggling with their message.
Yeah. What can so could you help them with that, Sandra?
Well, yeah, I could.
Yeah.
And so, and conversations with people do help folks to sort that out, even if your intention isn't to directly help them figure that out. By talking about it, they can better figure that out.
Yeah. How do you think that person feels about you when you just serve them for like no reason and no expectation of payback or just intentionally trying to help them. What do you think they think about you?
After the surprise wears off, they're very pleased.
Yes, they are. Very pleased. Yes, they are. Yes. So authentic is extremely important, Trina. You are correct. So I had a one-to-one this morning with somebody, and I asked them who they'd like to meet. Now, I get so many different answers, as you might imagine. And so here's what I've learned about somebody. I just want to share this with you. Here's what I've learned about somebody who doesn't know what they're looking for. Okay. I've learned that they are struggling just like all of us, trying to just get their stuff going, moving forward in the right direction right now. And that is the ultimate time to intentionally serve them beyond who most other people would even try to. So in this one-to-one with Greg today, he's like, I need to meet small businesses to advertise my magazine. And, he got this training from his, we'll say boss. Okay. So his boss is telling him this thing. And I'm like, man, I need you to help me out here. I can't help you. I'm like, help me help you. Little Jerry Maguire action there. And so, over the next couple of minutes, he's communicating. And so now I start making offers because, he needs a little support. So I'm like, would you like to meet this person? This is what they do. This is how I could see you two working together. He's like, oh man, that is so great. So before we're done, he's got 4. Now of the 4, 3, because he kept asking for COIs, okay, which was good. But then the 4th one was a prospect. And I offered that up to him because I have a great relationship with this prospect, and he may end up wanting to advertise. I don't know. And so I tell him the story. I mean, that guy, before we got off the phone, he didn't even ask me how he could help me, right? Because that happens. They're like set back, like, what just happened? He was like, I don't know when I can join, but it's no longer an if. It was like, okay, that's good, And so anyway, I just want to tell you that story. I don't know, I thought it'd be good. So serving is, it just helps us earn trust and credibility, right? We talk about that in the 7 pillars. Credibility is so important for others to want to help us too, right? All right, any questions or anything about that so far? Comments? Getting ready to dig into the last one. Nothing? Okay. All right. Let's get into ask. All right. So I really want to make sure we spend some time on this technique of ask. Ask. So, all right. So when you're in this one-to-one, somebody else, and you have connected with them and you have served them, they kind of want to help you. They do. They want to help you in some way. It's like this thing happens in us where, if Susan is helping me, don't it kind of make me want to help her back? Like it's still an ethical thing, right? It's not a manipulation thing. It's authentic. It's like, hey, this is an authentic community. All of us are here to help each other grow our businesses. And so that's what we do. And so the other person does want to help you back. So you want to ask. So that's where ask comes into play. So first, let's get back to like, know, and trust. So it's very important that you ask for help. Now, you didn't help them so that you can get help, right? It has to be authentic. Okay. But one of the main reasons we need to ask is because when they don't offer and we don't ask, we take the power away from them to earn your trust. You strip it right from them. You say, Susan, I appreciate our time today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. And you never ask, but Susan wants to ask. But maybe Susan is nervous. Maybe she's not sure, maybe she's afraid she'll come across funny. I mean, whatever. But then I just let her go. Now I just took the power away from her. She has no opportunity to earn that trust now. So basically it turned into like, no, like and no for them, like, no, and trust for me. Well, that's not win-win. We all got to win in some way. That's why we're here. So did you guys know that? If you don't ask, you take that power away. Yeah. I mean, especially if you just spent 10 minutes serving their brains out. You're gonna be like, I want to help. You're like, nope, gotta go. We'll see you next week. I'm good. Don't need nothing. I'm good. And so oftentimes I ask, my asks are, your ask, you should have a lot of different asks, a lot. Okay. So one of my asks is to make sure that they take care of those introduction I make. Another one is make sure you do a one-to-one with that person I'm introducing you to. Another ask is I'll invite them to come back and visit a meeting. I'll ask, if they've demonstrated, they should be a member of H7, I'll invite them to join. Just depends on the situation. It's not always the case. I promise you that. So other asks could be, hey, do you know any business coaches? I've had people like forcefully like, no, who's a good request? I can do that. Who's a good request for you? Who would you like to meet? I'm like, business coaches. I always have one. So you see how many asks I can fulfill that quickly? You should have that many asks. So I'm gonna put that in the chat box. Okay. Have at least 5 asks prepared in your mind. Okay. So you know where to go when they do ask. So that you can help them. Okay. So let's put in the last effort of, or the last technique of asking. Okay. So it's in the chat box. Now, I call it a triangle technique, but this technique, okay, works regardless if they ask or not. Okay. Because again, people want to, but they may not, they may have forgot, they're not really good at networking. There's all kinds of reasons why they may not ask. Okay. But you got to be prepared for that. So if they don't ask you and you got a couple minutes left in your meeting, in the chat box, it says, do you know? And then insert your request and put a question mark at the end. And then stop talking. And then let them respond. If they say yes, let me type this on a little bit better, okay? So don't take the first one. Let me do this one. If they say yes. If they say yes, ask them to introduce you to them, to that request. If they say no, start again at the top. these asks are super important. You know, we do a lot of we do so many different activities around asking for your requests, whether there's COIs, requests, whatever. They should have this down. Okay. So somebody asked Hannah, so what are you looking for, Hannah? What are you looking for, Hannah? You can't say I don't know.
I feel like this is always the biggest struggle for me too. And yeah, we go over it and over it and over it. And it's just, I don't know.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Let's play the game here. Okay. So let's pretend you're meeting with Jim, even though he's in Dayton, in St. Cloud, though. Okay. So he's the local junk guy. What would you ask him for? Local junk guy. How about a vet, a groomer?
Right.
He has dogs.
Yeah.
He has them on a screen all the damn time. So you'd think he knows a vet?
Probably.
There's his beagles right there. He's getting ready to show them to you. His coon dogs.
Oh,
So he cares for his dogs. What are you going to ask him? Vet,
groomer.
groomer. Okay. So identify who you're with based on all those other questions. So if you have this long list of requests, whether they're COIs or they're requests, your request should be based on the previous conversation you just had with them while serving them. Okay. So your request should be based on their responses when serving them. Who's your target market, Susan? Who's your target market, Hannah? And you tell me, oh, would you like to meet this person? Yeah, you would? Okay. All right, cool. So let's do Jim. That's a little easier. Sorry. Just because I got vets in my mind. So I'm like, Jim, who's your target market? Oh, I'm looking for new realtors in St. Cloud. And you're like, oh, I know this one realtor. Yeah, would you like to meet? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So where do you take your dogs? It seems like you really care about your dogs when I'm connecting. And he says, oh, I love my dogs. I take my dogs hunting for 10 days at a time and blah, blah, blah. And I go to this nice vet down the street and they groom them and all that stuff. And I spend a lot of time with my dogs. Oh, okay, cool. Later in the conversation, what do you think I'm gonna ask for?
Who's my vet?
Yes.
George Valentino's wife.
There we go. All right. So that last part about the asking is a little tricky, but hopefully you understood based on who you're with. That's what you should be asking for. All right. Comments, questions? I'm going to put all this in the chat and the email as well. So comments or questions? None? Clear as mud, huh?
It's clear. We just want to kind of salivate and marinate on it.
All right. By the way,